Hello, everyone. I don't know why I'm live. No, I do. I decided to go live this week because I was a little behind and I needed to record it quickly. So, anyway, welcome to the Know Your Place podcast. I'm Charles Altendorf, and this is episode 31. I can't believe I've done this 31 weeks in a row. On this week's episode, I wanted to talk about something I got in the mail today. Ooh, so exciting. I got in the mail today a flyer for Kentucky State Parks. And I thought that was pretty cool, and I've been to quite a few of them. So I thought I would get on here and talk about them. So, yeah, there's actually 52 things listed in this flyer. It delineates between state historic sites, state parks, or state historic sites, state recreational parks, and state resort parks. And obviously, by resort, they mean there's actually, lodging available, which is pretty cool. So, anyway, the first one I wanted to talk about, I guess the first one I ever was to actually was back in the 90s. We were in Lexington staying there because my dad had business there, and this was before we had ever moved to Kentucky. And my mom and I were looking for something to do for the day, so we went down to Fort Boonesborough. Now, Fort Boonesborough is a state park made, as it implies, to sort of highlight what the fort life was like for Daniel Boone back when he first settled in the area. And it's kind of cool, an old fort, very interesting. I don't. Uh, I actually haven't been there much since. I went back one other time because this is a tradition I have. I have a tradition. When me and my wife were sort of, I guess, dating, we hadn't fully gotten engaged or married yet. I was working for the area development district, and so I was going out and doing a lot of. An area development district is like a regional planning thing, and it covered like 16 counties. So, and in Kentucky, I know that sounds like a lot, but we have 100 plus counties, and we're like 26th in land area. So we have a lot. We have a lot of counties, but still, I would go out and I'd be out doing a lot of fuel collecting all day, and uh, so I would stop by Fort Boonesborough sometimes to buy my wife stuff like Ale 8, which is the local soft drink made in Winchester, Kentucky, and Blue Mondays, which are special candy bars. And it seems like the easiest place to buy them is just at a state park. And that is one of the things that is really cool about the state parks is most of them have stores, and of course they sell generally Kentucky Proud stuff. So you can, if you really, it's really like a place where you feel like you're really being a part of the state or giving something back to the state. You may or may not be, but it's really cool to be a part of. So anyway, that's what they have there, and so it's a little fort. It's made to, and they have little reenactments and things there of what everyday life was like. It's, I guess, if I had to say, it feels kind of similar to the experience I had at Jamestown when I was a kid. So anyway, now the second one I guess I have to talk about is Big Bone Lick, and I went to that one in high school for once to volunteer to plant trees when I was in National Honor Society, but also because I was part of this thing called the Boone County Youth Council. And it was where they took 5 students from the 5 high schools in the county and let us sort of see what government was like and how it was run. And at the very end, we had a sort of, I don't know, like an ending banquet. That's a good way of putting it. A banquet to end it all, and we did that at Big Bone Lick. And there are little things there too. There was like a high line and some other things and some cool little things. But it mainly was originally known because it is where there are some dinosaur fossils, and people like to go and look at them and sort of study the history of those. And I have to say though, to me it's not one of the most impressive state parks. It's nice. It's a good place for families, but uh, it doesn't grab you quite as much as some of the next ones I'll talk about. That I really think are some of the great state parks in our state. So the next one I want to talk about, I would go to any chance I got uh, when I was in college, and with my job with the area development district, and that is Natural Bridge State Park. Actually, it's a resort park. You can actually stay there too, and it's up in the mountains, but it's not all the way into eastern Kentucky. I'm sure I'll get flack for that. It's in Powell County, which is definitely a mountain county, but it's not sort of the deeper Hazard Pikeville part of the mountains. And it's called Natural Bridge because there's this big arch that's a natural bridge there, obviously, and you can walk over it. And what I love about these parks is there's lots of stuff you can do at them for free. You don't have to pay any money to do. In Indiana, when we lived there, you had to pay money to do virtually anything in a lot of parks. But here, you don't have to. There are a lot of optional things to pay money to do. Like at Natural Bridge, for example, you don't have to pay money to go up and see the Natural Bridge, but if you want, you can pay to do the skylift, which is cool because you get to see, this very rapid change in elevation. And yeah, so Natural Bridge is great, and it's really been a great thing for that county. There's so much tourist trade happening around there because of it, and lots of hikers like to go there, and it's beautiful. It really is. It's a beautiful place, and yes, there are the other sort of rough and tumble things to it, but I love it. There's lots of kitschy little shops. It's like a smaller version of what people like about the Smokies without all the crowds of the Smokies. So I love it. I love Powell County, and I love Natural Bridge State Park, and I would love to go back there. I can't get in. And I spent I would say anytime I had to work out in Powell or Estill County, I tried to spend my lunch break out there because it was just so nice. It's just a nice place to have a picnic, very wooded and hilly, and it's awesome, man. If you ever get the chance to go, you should definitely go. But I understand why it's kind of hard. It's not exactly on the beaten path, but it's not exactly off it either. So yeah, after that, I wanted to talk about Whitehall because that state historic site holds some significance for me, but also because of who it's about. Whitehall is a what can I say about Whitehall? It's the home of Cassius Clay, not the fighter who became Muhammad Ali, but the guy that Muhammad Ali, aka Cassius Clay, was actually named after. That's right. He was one of the early abolitionists, and an abolitionist in Kentucky, which wasn't a fully abolitionist state. So you can imagine he was quite the character. He was also an ambassador to Russia, so he was a very different sort of creature. And then, of course, he was very much scandalized later in life with lots of scandals. But his house is also very weird because there's multiple sections built on it, and it's like they don't meet exactly. It's very weird. And of course, off of the balcony is the famous cannon that he had to try and ward off assassins. This is quite the wild time back leading up to the Civil War at this guy's mansion. But the reason why it has special significance to me is my wife and I actually took our engagement photos at this state historic site, and it always holds a special place in my heart, and it really was and it was like a half an hour drive from my college campus, so it's always going to be a special place of significance for me, and I haven't actually been back in a while. Maybe I'll have to find an excuse to go there again. Um, so, yeah. So it's a neat place, and we're seeing, and that one's actually one of the easier places to get to that I'm talking about because it's right off the interstate by Lexington. So um, now the next one I wanted to talk about was the old Fort Harrod, and that's a big deal because that state park was actually the first capital of Kentucky. So or where they first where they drew up their constitution. So it's a very neat place, and you should go check it out. I was only there once briefly, but it's got lots of playground equipment and other things too, and it's got reenactors and all that sort of stuff. And the next place I wanted to talk about is the William Whitley House, and this place holds a special significance for me as well because it's my future wife, when we were dating and when we were engaged, she worked there for a while. She gave tours, and it was the first home west of the Appalachians, is its claim to fame. And William Whitley was a big figure in the War of 1812. In fact, such a big figure that a Canadian documentary came down to the house to film it for their documentary, and the main narrator on the documentary was actually Ranger Gord from the Red Green Show. So that's very funny. But yeah, it's a great. It's a little house, and yeah, it's a little tour. It's not like an all-day thing to go there, but it's still very neat and worth a little stopover by, to see this old place. And they keep talking all the time. They want to bring back a horse race track there because I guess way back in the day they raced horses out there. I don't know if it'll ever happen or not, but maybe it will. Yeah. So the next place I wanted to talk about, and man, all these places have some significance for me. But the next place I was going to talk about is Cumberland Falls State Resort Park. Now, this is beautiful, probably the most attended park in the state of Kentucky, and it's still worth going to even with that amount of crowd and attendance. But it's got these humongous falls that are, they call them the Niagara of the South. They're a very huge waterfall, and it's the volume's kind of overwhelming at times. And there's lots of other falls nearby you can hike to while being at those falls. And they also do this thing called they also let you see the rainbows. They have a moon glow every once in a while. It's very cool. It's a very cool place, and you never know what you're going to see when you're out there. One time, me and my wife were out there, and there's some guy there playing the flute, and another time we were out there, somebody was kayaking up the falls, which probably wasn't very wise. Anyway, it's a cool place, and of course, when my wife and I had our honeymoon, we stayed there, and it was pretty relaxing, I have to say. It's while it's not that far from the interstate, it is a bit off. It's about 20 miles or so away from it. So you are definitely not. You feel like you're out in nature. You don't feel like you're on the way to anywhere, and that's what's cool about it. The road out there is kind of tricky though, so it's kind of a crazy windy drive. And yeah, so I have memories from there, staying in the hotel room there, and it was a little bit of a throwback, the room, but it wasn't terrible, and it was very relaxing. And the food was pretty good. I forgot to mention the other thing I liked about Natural Bridge was definitely the food there. Their restaurant in their resort park is amazing, and they had a really great hot brown. That's a local Kentucky classic for all of my international listeners. So you should definitely check out the food there. Now, Cumberland Falls, I only had the breakfast buffet, so I can't really speak to the quality of the food, but it was pretty good. And I guess I'll sort of wrap up this little discussion here with talking about the one I was at the most recently. Oh, wait, I got two more to talk about. Okay. So the other one we went to, my wife and I took a special trip to go to because we wanted to have some fun in our anniversary, and she had been to this one, I think, once as a kid, a long time ago, and didn't, because it's kind of out of the way. And this is the John James Audubon State Park. Now, it's on the Kentucky side near a city called Hendersonville, but it's near the more major city of Evansville, Indiana. And it's dedicated to Audubon, and he lived in the area for a while, and they say sort of he started founding his observations and paintings and things there. before he moved to New Orleans. So it's just rich in history. It's really cool. They have a really nice museum there. It doesn't cost very much to tour, and the wildlife is magnificent. All the bird paintings and cataloging and everything. And this state just seems very rich in history at times when you go to these state parks. And I'm not saying, I'm sure all states have some state parks and state historic sites, but these just, you feel like you're just in history. And I'm sure I kind of felt that way at times when I was in Virginia visiting from North Carolina, but Kentucky really does feel that way. And then I was going to wrap it up with the one I've been at the most recently, so I'm going to close and talk about, well, this one is probably more attended than Cumberland Falls. I don't know which one is, but my old Kentucky home state park. Now, for any of you that watch the Kentucky Derby or, know a little bit more about Kentucky than just fried chicken, then you probably have heard of the song My Old Kentucky Home. It's always sung around here. We sing it when I was in college at the end of every basketball game when we were in the stands. And it's the state park they built was where Stephen Foster lived, and they say this home and this stretch in Bardstown, Kentucky here is what inspired the song. So it's kind of corny, but it's a fun corny. I mean, you come in here, you see this house, it's inspirational, and the gardens are very nice, and we also had a playground for us to take our kid to, and I think I'd like to go back again. It's and some people when we were there were actually having a wedding there, and I'm sure that feels kind of cool to have your wedding there. And it's a cool little park. And the other thing about Bardstown is there's a lot of other things to do in town when you're there, so you can do that and then do a bunch of other things like tour a distillery or check out all the little shops and things. And it's a neat little town. It's had some ups and downs over the years, but I think it'll always be sort of a special historical town in Kentucky. Well, anyway, that's my podcast for this week. So I don't know if anyone was watching or not. I didn't even bother to check. I don't think so. It looks like we're good. So yeah, you're probably listening to this not live, wondering why it was live at one point. But anyway, thanks for listening to my podcast, and we'll see you all next week.